Uncertainty in Ukraine, even as the Speaker of Parliament assumes presidential duties. Viktor Yanukovych still insists he is the country's leader. As the events take several dramatic turns, we ask, what does the future hold for this country, and will it remain united or break apart? You're watching Inside Story. Welcome to the program. I'm Shihab Rattansi. A leader overthrown and a country now left in need of leadership. Protests erupted in Ukraine in November when President Viktor Yanukovych favored closer ties with Russia over the European Union. Violence between the police and demonstrators left dozens dead, and a peace deal signed between Yanukovych and the opposition has failed to end the protests. Despite his impeachment, the president says he remains Ukraine's legitimate leader. It's thought he's no longer in the capital, but his whereabouts are unknown. His arch-rival, Yulia Timoshenko, is now free after more than 2 years in jail. She wants closer ties with the EU, but whether she'll become the new president remains to be seen. And with Russia withholding a $2 billion aid package, Ukraine's financial security is in question. Some have voiced concern that Ukraine may be split apart as the opposition fails to hold the country together. So who makes up the opposition in Ukraine? As we've just seen, Yulia Timoshenko is certainly a front-runner already in talks with some European leaders. Freed on Saturday after serving 2 years for corruption, she was widely popular 9 years ago when she became the face of the Orange Revolution. Timoshenko was prime minister twice, but always a divisive figure with passionate supporters and critics. Arseny Yatsenyuk is the leader of the parliamentary faction of the Fatherland Party, which was founded by Timoshenko. An economist and lawyer, he presents himself as a reformer, sometimes at odds with Timoshenko over policy and politics. Then there's the head of the nationalist Svoboda Party, or Freedom Party, Ola Tyaniobok. An ultra-nationalist, his movement is accused of anti-Semitism and racism and was a shock success in the 2012 parliamentary election, becoming Ukraine's fourth largest party. Another key figure, Vitaly Klitschko, the former world heavyweight boxing champion, heads the Ukrainian Democratic Alliance for Reforms, or PUNCH. The pro-EU party came third in last year's parliamentary elections. It campaigns against what it perceives to be rampant government corruption. What's next for Ukraine then? There is a great deal to discuss as events move quickly. To help us analyze the issue, I'm joined by our guests. From Kiev, Alexandr Korman, who within the last few hours has become the former First Deputy Chairman of the Public Council to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. From London, Lilit Gevorgyan. She's country analyst for Russia and the Commonwealth of Independent States for IHS Global. And from Kiev, Valentin Yakushik. He's professor of political science at the University of Kiev Mohyla Academy. Professor Yakushik, first of all then, the protesters are still clearly in the square, and yet they were supposed to have left as part of the deal that's been negotiated. Who's in control of them?
If making comparison, for many your listeners, it will be easier to understand. In my view, it's something simple, something similar to what happened in Tripoli. You have a lot of katibas, of groupings, or here they are called hundreds, semi-autonomous groups, so they are in control of the city. Our law enforcement organs, institutions like police and others are demoralized. So these are the key elements of the present power. There are politicians in the parliament, they discuss something, but really the force behind them are these people with weapons who made the revolution. So now when I was coming to this hotel, they were guiding the people in the streets, saying go straightly by two, stop here. So there is a rule and order in the streets established by paramilitaries.
Right. And Lilit Gevorgyan,
they are cooperating now with various... Yeah.
Lilit Gevorgyan, though, so the Parliament doesn't necessarily have control over these opposition forces unleashed. And constitutionally, aren't they perhaps on shaky ground, given they've returned to an old constitution without the signature of the president? They've now named an interim president. But what does all that actually mean? I mean, are they on shaky ground?
Well, first of all, what we're seeing is power vacuum, and what the opposition is trying to do is quickly form a temporary government and pave the road to presidential elections, get rid of this transitional period and solidify its power. In terms of the parliament's influence, for as long as they are adopting the legislation that is compliant with the opposition's goals, I think they will be deemed as legitimate. With regards to the impeachment and the following legal acts that the parliament has adopted, obviously there are certain rules to be followed, and Ukrainian constitution, for example, requires that these major pieces of legislation should be approved by 2/3 of the parliament. It is very difficult to ascertain whether this quorum is being kept or not. Most likely it is, and indeed there is a fast move to revert to 2004 constitution, which had its own problems that we can discuss later.
Professor Korman, then, I mentioned earlier that when we first booked you for this program, you at least had an advisory capacity to the government. I take it now that that no longer exists. In fact, that whole government no longer exists.
First of all, I don't agree with Mr. Yakushik about the situation like is in Tripoli, because now we have different situation. First of all, you must understand we have battle between nation, the people, and between the government, first of all. Why? Because I look for Maidan all the time and the government process all the time. And what I see, the people on the street, on the Maidan, were disappointed by each of politics, not only government, but and some of the opposition leaders too. If you can see the process, the Maidan all the time ask them to be not to be corruption, not to be liar when they will the government officially, but now they disappoint by all the process in Ukraine, the first of all. Secondly, in the parliament, everything was happened, what happened in the parliament was legal. Why? Because now we have a constitution number 300 deputies, it is a constitution majority, and if we have in parliament, according to our constitution, 300 people, we can change our constitution, we can change and have an impeachment to the president. And how it happened? Some deputies from party, the regional party, now enjoy to the majority, and there's a problem of government, how your government, your parliamentary now lose your places and enjoy to the government. It mean what something changed in Ukraine, not a fight between the melees and the people, but something changed in the mind of people. At last, the Ukrainian people, they become free. They feel what they free, and they have this free inside of hearts. And now these people want to declare their freedom, their liberty, and their human rights, and they protect their human rights. And I see what even when yesterday Timoshenko was on the platform in the Maidan, some of the people was disappointed, her person too. And if you can look in the network and the internet, many of the pictures and images when the people they look for Timoshenko like in the Yanukovych, and they told to her, if you will do the same what Yanukovych did before you, you will next after Yanukovych. That's why I think it's not the situation like in Tripoli. Something changed. The nation changed.
Right.
Long time, for 70 years, slowly Soviet Union, and now changed the nation.
And it's fascinating to hear you, who was actually associated with the government, say that. And you do get that sense, Lilit Gevorgyan, that many people in Yanukovych's own party are distancing them from him. Russia seems to have distanced himself from him. Actually, they seem to be getting quite close to Timoshenko now and talking about how an IMF bailout isn't a bad idea, which kind of shows us how complicated this narrative is. It isn't just simply an EU versus Russia narrative. Timoshenko seems to be quite close to Moscow, if anything.
Well, I wouldn't go that far to say that Timoshenko is close to Russia. I think really from the start of this crisis, there was a lot of geopolitical and Cold War rhetoric that didn't really do justice to analyzing the crisis in Ukraine. Russia was really backing Yanukovych because they saw that he's legitimately elected president, but most of all, he could provide some sort of stability. He can't do it any longer, so he doesn't really have much value for Moscow. In terms of Timoshenko's role, I think I indeed agree that she's quite a divisive figure, and not many members of the opposition would be happy to see her emerging as a top leader of the opposition. And most importantly, right now Ukraine is facing that all important economic issues that Russia is not really willing to extend its credit lines or gas price discount, and they're suggesting that perhaps opposition leaders, including Timoshenko, should explore other avenues, including IMF.
And we'll explore those avenues in a moment. But then, Professor Yakushik, what I'm hearing then is that the protesters will remain in the street because they fear that Timoshenko, for example, her ascendancy to any great role of power will just swap one bunch of kleptocrats for another, one bunch of oligarchs for another.
Well, Mrs. Timoshenko is a very experienced and charismatic leader. She knows how to deal with the West, how to deal with Moscow, how to deal with ordinary people. I may tell you that she is the most smart in the present moment, while the acting speaker and who was declared acting president according to the revolutionary laws was saying, okay, it's time for Maidan, for the revolutionary brigades to go home. Timoshenko, coming out of the prison, saw that it's not possible. There is no other force, so she appealed to them that she wants new people to come to power. So Timoshenko will pursue, if she is elected a prime minister and then a president, she will pursue a kind of social populistic policy. She has no other way to do, because absolute majority of these revolutionary brigades, they have socialistic views, national socialistic views, or some peasant socialistic views. They want to nationalize oligarchs, and so on. So she will have to agree with them, the policies. By the way, the West.
I mean, the IMF will want to privatize everything, I assume, and sell it to Western multinationals.
Yeah. So that's the West will have serious problems with that, I suppose, because, well, if British and American companies have signed agreement on shale gas, on offshore extraction of oil and gas here, would you think that these new people will agree to these corrupt contracts? Yeah, well, the West has to have some agreement with the companies close to the president. They will not. The West will have to face a kind of regime similar to mixture of Thomas Sankara and Pinochet with the nationalistic policies. That's my prediction. And it will be the best solution for the West and for Russia if Yulia Timoshenko is guiding it. Because absolute majority of other people, they are not at all prepared. Pardon?
Well, Lilit Gevorgyan, though, we had that YouTube tape that was released of American officials discussing who they wanted in power, and they were very much of the mind that it was actually Arseniy Yatsenyuk, who actually leads Timoshenko's party and led Timoshenko's party while she was in prison, who they felt should be the main driving force. Does that suggest then that there will be this struggle for influence? And did that US endorsement diminish him at all?
Well, it probably didn't do a great deal of service in terms of Arseniy Yatsenyuk trying to also secure some support in eastern parts of Ukraine, that many people have been suspicious of the US involvement. But I think we shouldn't really exaggerate the importance of external players in this crisis. Ultimately, it is about a number of opposition groups that are diverged, and they are not necessarily united. They have been united only around one issue. They wanted to change the government and get to power. Now, how would they get to power, and would they remain united? I highly doubt it.
Right.
What we have to be also aware of is the emergence of a very strong right groups and parties, nationalist parties, who would like to have a stake in the power as well. So Timoshenko's rise to power or to presidency is definitely on the table, but not necessarily guaranteed, because her supporters among the opposition parties may not be so willing to see her at the top.
And we call these parties ultra-nationalist, Professor Korman, but some would call them anti-Semitic, racist, with sympathies with the Nazis and fascists. I mean, what sort of level of support did they have? How much power did they wield in the opposition?
First of all, I think it's my opinion. What I want to add to this discussion. Mr. Yanukovych has the first chance when he was Premier Minister, and second chance when he was elected by President. The Timoshenko has one chance when she was a Premier Minister, and maybe the time will come when she can have a second chance, but it will last chance. For about extremist groups and about the nationalism and fascism group. You know, this problem, all the time this problem, maybe this is a problem, yes, really this is a problem. We had this problem in Ukraine all the time. It's not today happened. It was long time in Ukraine, especially in the western part of Ukraine, the problem with nationalism. But I want to divide it and separate nationalism from fascism. Because some group of people, of course, they have a fascism ideas, but majority of people is a nationalist, patriotic feeling and experience. They want to be the free and live in a freedom country and be Ukrainians without any branches and without any slavery. Of course, some group of people, they openly promote the nationalism, the fascism ideas. But now we have what situation changed with this, because our government, and not only our government, our new ministers, they gave a commandment and they gave a laws to protect Ukraine like one joint country and stop any separation, any problem with dividing or separating the countries. And according to this law, I see what our governor speak all the time about this Nazism and fascism experience, to stop it and joining out one idea to be one nation and one country without any fascism experience. And I think it can happen when Ukrainians will understood what they have a freedom and liberty in their country at last.
All right, well, that remains to be seen, I suppose, but certainly some of the materials produced by these groups are pretty frightening, at least from the outside then. But clearly then, Professor Yakushik, there is a strain of nationalism, and that's often overlooked as people look for a proxy battle between Russia and the EU. But having said that, what was the EU really up to, though? There are some who say that the EU sort of precipitated this crisis by forcing Yanukovych to choose between Russia and the EU last year. Is it clear what they were up to? Do they want some sort of fight?
Very excellent questions. Let me answer them. This is right-wing nationalism. They start with anti-Russian declarations. They were done by Svoboda party, de-Russification, but now the right segment, the most powerful brigade here, pressed all the members of parliament, and the parliament and other nationalists also pressed. The parliament passed today the law on abrogating the initially, well, 1 year ago, passed law on the languages, which gave to Russian language and other languages status of regional languages. Now there is no. They are very happy that now only one national language in Ukraine. I think it's a very big problem for the revolutionaries, because they alienate the east and the south of the country. They might have waited a little bit with that in implementing their radical policies. Yesterday they tried to occupy the Russian Orthodox Church center in Kiev, or the big churches here, but they just stopped and they are controlling the entrance to it. Somebody advised them, if they do that, this will be more alienation. So unexperienced politicians, they are creating problems for the future Prime Minister and the future President. As to European Union, I think the whole crisis was provoked by greediness and arrogance of several important Euro bureaucrats. I think after the elections in European Union, those guys, men and ladies, have to be punished by Europeans because they provoked something when they tried to impose on Ukraine an agreement which was just awful to the east and south. And only 1 week before signing this agreement, President realized what he will have as the protests in the east. Now he has protests in the west and from nationalistic parts of the country. So Europeans, please try to analyze how do you deal with the countries which have no brain in their government. This government didn't have any kind of deliberative democracy and didn't have any discussion. It was authoritarian in trying to impose one type of policy and then another type. And then there was frustration among a lot of population who for more than 1 year was hearing that there is no plan B for Ukraine, only going one way. So there was frustration on one side of Ukraine in the east and in the west. Please look who is responsible for provoking this crisis and try to think how we will find way out of it, because it's just the beginning of Ukrainian problems with unexperienced people who have power, who have weapons. It's not so easy to deal neither by local people nor by the West.
Two really important issues there which I need to get to.
Attempts to soothe the situation.
In our remaining time, we've only got 2 minutes left, and so I'm going to take them very quickly, one by one. First, Lilit, Russia, where does it stand right now, would you say?
Well, I think that Russia believes that Ukrainians haven't done a great service to their country. They have yet another time decided to solve their problems with revolution. Russian government doesn't believe that these populist revolutions can bring to any stability and particularly solve Ukraine's economic problems. They are concerned about their financial and economic exposure to this country. It's a biggest investor in the country, and also Ukraine is responsible for transiting Russia's gas, most of its gas, to EU. So these are practical concerns. In terms of what's going to happen in Ukraine and the new government, I think Russia is pretty much confident that there won't be really a strong government in the coming months, and its neighbor, unfortunately, will be in turmoil, particularly economic turmoil, which will have an impact on Russian businesses as well.
And Professor Korman, then, it was very interesting to hear Professor Yakushik there talk about the alienation of regions in Ukraine. That's what always leads to this speculation about the potential for the country splitting up. How real do you think that possibility is?
I think it's possible to be one nation and join together, and I think it's really in Ukraine, only politics tried to separate Ukraine. When it was in 2005, was a situation when some group of politics tried to tell the people what we are another kind of Ukraine. It happened in the Severodonetsk, in the eastern part of Ukraine. Yet again, we see this ways to do this same, separate Ukraine in Kharkov again. And what we can see, what after this meeting in Kharkov, what happened 2 days ago, after this meeting, immediately the governor and the mayor of the Kharkov lose the country and fly away to the Russia. It means they tried to do separation, but after this something happened, because our oligarchs, our government told to him, if you only try to separate Ukraine, you will have a problem with our laws, and they leave the country, and now they are absent in Ukraine. They are not in Ukraine. That's, I think, only few group of deputies now try to separate Ukraine. Majority people in the country try to join Ukraine. All our celebrators, all our the politics, they are recording the video to nation, try to join the people. No, don't give the direction to the politics, do it, but you yourself protect your country. And I think it's possible, because the Russian position, the Kremlin position 2 days ago was, we are for one country Ukraine, for joint country Ukraine. It was the official Kremlin position. And I think only our new government can destroy everything, because I'm so sorry for this law about languages, because it's really the problem. We must not to do these laws and support these laws, because it's divided the country. We must do everything for join the country together.
Professor Alexandr Korman, thank you so much. Professor Valentin Yakushik, thank you so much. Lilit Gevorgyan, thank you as well. And thank you for joining us on this edition of Inside Story. If you want, send us your feedback by email to insidestory@aljazeera.net. Thanks for watching.